Class. Well, I'm back in Nebraska. I'm back in my office. And you know what? It's good. It's always fun to go places, but it's so nice to come back home. So I have been working on catching up grading, and you'll probably see that I've got a few more things graded. I'm working on the Lillian videos, the summary skill. The client interviews, I've been reading some journal reflections, and so far fantastic. It sounds like some of you guys really had some good experiences, and you learned some things about yourself and the skills, which is exactly what I had intended for that assignment. So fantastic. And then the question discussion board, that's been really interesting to see how questions can have an impact. I mean, such a huge impact on you. And I really wanted you to kind of see that it can have a negative impact, but it also can have a more positive impact when you ask good open-ended questions to help the client think about things, or the student, or whoever you're working with. Sometimes when we ask questions in a very negative kind of tone, or an accusatory tone, even if the question isn't one that is accusatory, it can sound that way, and some of you mentioned that. So fantastic. Just keep remembering, open-ended questions are definitely the best when you're working with people. Rather than telling them what to do, it helps them discover what's the best choice for themselves. So that brings us up to confrontation. And I do kind of just want to do a little mini lecture on confrontation, because it is our first advanced skill. And as an advanced skill, the confrontation kind of builds on the client observation skill. So we take that basic skill of client observation, and then we build on that a confrontation. And so really, when you think of the word confrontation, it can be very negative. I think when you're working with a person, you think, oh, I don't want to confront anybody. I don't want to make anybody upset, or those kinds of things. But really, confrontation is really more about noting discrepancies between two things, and reflecting that back to the person, the client, the student, whoever you're working with. So when you notice those discrepancies between what a client or student or another person says and what they do, or between two things they've said, or between the context and what they say, it really is noticing those things using the client observation skill, and then just reflecting that back to the person and letting them then respond on what that means. And so the confrontation skill is really about listening for the discrepancies, giving those back to the client, student or person, and then evaluating the response you get, because that will then determine your next steps. So in the book, it talks about that. You evaluate, do they accept it? Do they reject it? Do they partially accept it? And that will then determine your next steps. So in the helpful handout materials that I have, you'll see that there's a thing on confrontation. And it, again, is just more information. If you're interested in reading it in a different format, more of a bullet point format. The thing about this helpful information in the packet, it tells you if you get a denial response or a partial confrontation response, what the next steps could be. So denial kind of means back up and lay more groundwork. You have to have a really good foundation for the confrontation skill. And so if you're getting a denial, sometimes it's because you haven't prepared the foundation, or maybe built a relationship. So you kind of back off a little bit. If you get partial acceptance, so they say, yes, I agree with this, but not this part, you want to explore both sides of that. So you just go to using your good skills, explore the yes side, and explore the no side. Okay? If you get acceptance and recognition but no change, you kind of look at, well, what is it that is causing the barrier to change? And so you kind of go with, okay, so you see this is hindering you, and then you start working on what that hindrance is. And then the best is when they say, yes, you're right, this is in my way, and this is causing a problem, and here's now what I want to do about it. Not all the time do you get that, though, because that takes a pretty good level of insight. But that's what we're shooting for, is helping that person change and generate new things to do. It's kind of that restoring that they talk about in the book. So that's the confrontation skill. And you, in your homework this week or the module, you'll be doing a quiz, which just kind of is one of those chapter quizzes that you've done, and then watching a video example and answering the questions after you've watched the whole video. It's a pretty good example of a person working with a student on whether they want to pursue higher education. And the discrepancy is between kind of two people. So it's between the student and their family. I think it's the mom. And so, you know, the counselor in that, or the professional, does a pretty good job helping her explore that by using confrontation. So, one last thing on the quiz, Chapter 8, I did want to tell you that somebody had sent me a concern that one of the questions was not really accurate to the book. And as I got to looking at it, I definitely agreed. And it's what I would call the Ben Franklin question in there. So if you got that one wrong, I counted it right because I think it was very confusing in the quiz. So anyway, that's all I have for this week. So we're going to do confrontation, and then we're going to take a spring break week the following week. So keep on trucking. We're getting close, guys. So take care, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.